At 6:14 on a Tuesday in October, a 31-year-old man is standing alone in a near-empty gym, re-racking 405 pounds. The lights overhead are still on the pre-dawn setting. He has not spoken to another person yet today. He is not exceptional. He is statistical. In 2024, U.S. fitness facilities served about 77 million members, a record, and the fastest-growing modality was free weights. In 1990, 3% of American men reported having no close friends. By 2021, 15% did. The man at the rack is not lifting because he is unusually disciplined. He is lifting because the room is empty in a way that is no longer only physical. Today we want to ask why this room specifically. Not the bar, not the lodge, not the church basement, not the union hall. Why the squat rack became the place where modern masculinity converged. The short answer is that the other rooms went dark. The long answer is the rest of the video. For most of the 20th century, an American man could measure himself against a handful of clear games. There was a wage, there was a uniform, there was a craft, there was a roster of other men who would notice whether he showed up. Most of those rosters are smaller now, or gone. The factory that hired 6,000 hires 400. The union local that ran a softball league runs a Facebook page. The closing of those games is not a single story. It is wages, technology, trade, automation, the disappearance of certain industries, the deliberate end of certain hierarchies. Some of it was correct. Some of it was unkind. Most of it was both. In 2019, David Autor, David Dorn, and Gordon Hanson published a paper in American Economic Review, Insights titled When Work Disappears. They tracked U.S. commuting zones from 1990 to 2014, looking at where trade-induced manufacturing shocks landed hardest. Where male earnings fell, marriage rates fell, fertility fell, single-headed households rose, and premature male mortality rose. The economic shock did not stay economic. It moved through the family, the body, and the obituary. In the same year, Ariel Binder and John Bound at Michigan published in the Journal of Economic Perspectives a longer view. Prime-age male labor force participation has been falling steadily since 1970. The canonical economic model, they wrote, does not really explain this. It is a feedback loop between the wage, the marriage market, and the man's sense of being needed by either one. When the loop dimmed, he stepped out. So one of the games quietly closed, then another, then another. By the time the youngest men in the data turned 30, the scoreboard had a lot of rows, and most of the rows were dark. There is a parallel story happening inside the body. It is not the cause of the convergence. It is the backdrop. In 2007, Thomas Travison at the Massachusetts Male Aging Study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, a finding that quietly unsettled the field. They had measured testosterone in 1,532 men across 3 waves from 1987 to 2004. A 40-year-old in 1989 had measurably more testosterone than a different 40-year-old measured in 2003. This is what an age-matched secular decline means. The same age, a different decade, less of the hormone. The number Travison reported was about -1 2/10% per year, independent of aging itself, independent of weight, independent of smoking. In 2021, Lokeshwar and colleagues at European Urology Focus picked up the same thread for younger men. Using the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, they followed 4,045 U.S. men aged 15 to 39. Mean total testosterone in 1999 to 2000 was 605 nanograms per deciliter. By 2015 to 2016, the same age band averaged 451. That is the hormone floor of the modern young American man. We do not know all the reasons. The literature is honest about that. But the number is real, and it has been moving in one direction for 2 decades. A man does not lift only because of his hormones. He lifts because of who is in the room with him, or who is not. In May 2021, Daniel Cox at the Survey Center on American Life published the * State of American Friendship *. About 2,000 Americans were asked a simple question: how many close friends do you have? In 1990, 55% of American men said they had 6 or more close friends. In 2021, 27% said the same. The number was cut in half. And the share of men who said they had no close friends at all rose from 3% to 15%, a 5-fold increase in one generation. This is the empty roster, not romantic loneliness, not even sadness exactly. It is the structural absence of other men in the room, the kind who would notice whether you showed up and whether you held the squat. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General published an advisory on loneliness. The number the headlines used was that the mortality cost of social disconnection was roughly equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The number is real, but it can numb you. So let it land more slowly. A 30% increase in premature death risk, sitting underneath the surface of a perfectly normal life. A January 2025 report from Pew Research surveyed about 6,200 Americans. They found that 54% of women would turn to a friend for emotional support. 38% of men would. The gap widens further on mental health. 31% of women said they talked to their close friends about it. 15% of men said the same. In other words, the average man has fewer people he can name, and fewer of the people he can name will hear the difficult sentence. So he lifts. Here is where the convergence stops being only about loss and starts being about design. Of all the rooms a modern man could walk into, the gym has one rare property. It runs on deterministic reward. Most of the games the modern world offers a man are variable reward. The dating app slot machines a few matches a week. The job tournament hands out the promotion 2 years late or never. Social media metricates attention in pulses no one can predict. In 2010, Brad Schoenfeld at the * Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research published a literature review of the mechanisms of muscle hypertrophy. He named 3: mechanical tension, muscle damage, and metabolic stress. All 3 respond to a single principle: progressive overload. You add a small amount of load each week, and the body, under normal conditions, adapts in a way that is measurable. A man can walk into a room on Monday, put 2.5 pounds more on the bar than last Monday, complete the set, and walk out knowing something has been confirmed. That confirmation is rare. It is not how a salary works. It is not how a relationship works. It is not how creative output works. It is also not how the gym works for everyone forever. Newbie gains plateau. Genetics enter the conversation. The deterministic phase narrows over years. But in the first 2 years, sometimes the first 5, the contract is unusually clean. The bar does not lie about what was lifted. The body does not lie about whether the input was applied. There is no panel of judges between the work and its evidence. The gym also delivers a second thing. The body is a hard-to-fake signal. In 2017, Aaron Sell, Aaron Lukasiewski, and Michael Townsley published in Proceedings of the Royal Society a study in which raters were shown photographs of male bodies and asked to rate either physical strength or attractiveness. Rated upper body strength explained about 70% of the variance in male bodily attractiveness. With height and lean mass added, it climbed past 80%. That number sounds like a verdict, so it is important to read it slowly. It is the variance among male bodies as raters see them. It is not a verdict about a person. And in 2007, David Frederick and Marty Haselton at UCLA had already shown the other half of the picture. They published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin a series of studies on muscularity and mate preference. Muscular men were rated as sexier in short-term mating contexts. They were also rated as less committed, more volatile, and less suitable for long-term partnership. Long-term preferences tilted leaner. So the simple version, that women want bigger men, therefore men lift, is empirically wrong. The picture is closer to. Muscularity is read as a hard-to-fake signal of present formidability, and that reading helps in some contexts and hurts in others. The deeper reason the body works as a resume is older than any preference survey. You cannot borrow it for a Saturday night. You had to live a year of Tuesdays for it to exist. Why does the gym hold attention when so many other rooms lose it? Part of the answer lives in how the brain handles reward schedules. The slot machine is sticky because it is variable. You do not know which pull will pay. The dating app, the social media feed, the gambling site, these are all variable reward engines, and the brain treats variability as urgency. The gym is the opposite shape. The reward arrives on a fixed schedule. Each session a small confirmed adaptation, each week a slightly heavier bar. That is a strange thing for a modern reward to be. Almost nothing in 21st century life delivers reliably. The mortgage application does not. The submission to the publisher does not. The conversation with the recruiter does not. What lifting offers the modern man is not the bigger reward. It is the honest reward, the kind that does not ghost. In 2018, Brett Gordon at the University of Limerick published in JAMA Psychiatry a meta-analysis of randomized trials of resistance training and depressive symptoms. The pooled effect size was a Cohen's d of about -0.66. That is a moderate effect, neither nothing nor a cure. It held across health status, training volume, and whether the people actually got stronger. A moderate effect is a real effect. It is also not a salvation. The script of this video is going to keep saying that. The sociologist Eric Kleinenberg uses the term *third place for rooms that are not home and not work where people go to be alone but together. Coffee shops, public libraries, bars, lodges. Many of the rooms that used to function this way for American men have thinned out. Bowling leagues, fraternal orders, neighborhood bars, union halls, denominational churches, all on multi-decade declines. The gym quietly took over much of that load. The 24-hour chain, the boutique, the garage, the powerlifting club in the warehouse, these are now where strangers nod at each other and recognize a face by Wednesday. The nod matters. Most modern men do not have a place where they are recognized by a face and a habit and an unspoken courtesy about whose bench it is on Tuesdays. The gym does not solve the loneliness. It softens the room around it. A man who is not yet ready to talk can still be seen. The bar used to do this. The lodge used to do this. The gym does not do it as deeply, but it does it on a Tuesday at 6:14 in the morning, which is when no other room is open. The HFA's 2024 global report counted about 77 million Americans now passing through these rooms. It is not a movement. It is a quiet redistribution of where the male hour goes. A convergence this strong has a dark margin. We should name it without alarm. In 2014, Harrison Pope at McLean Hospital, Jen Kanyama, and James Hudson published in the American Journal on Addictions a population estimate of lifetime anabolic androgenic steroid use. They estimated that 2.9 to 4 million Americans between 13 and 50 have used these substances at some point. Over 90% of users are male. The peak users are between 18 and 30. This is not a moral verdict. It is a leak detector. When a deterministic reward starts to slow, some lifters answer by changing the inputs in ways the deterministic system was not designed for. The same margin contains the body dysmorphia patient who never feels lean enough, the online forums that score faces and frames on tenths, the influencers selling certainty for a monthly subscription. None of these are the typical lifter. The typical lifter is a man trying to keep a small, honest commitment to himself on a Wednesday morning. But the margin exists, and acknowledging it is part of taking the subject seriously. The shorter way to say all of this: when something becomes the only game in town, the costs of playing it badly also concentrate. Among the costs we cannot name causally but should mention plainly. In 2023, the U.S. male suicide rate was 22.8 per 100,000. The female rate was 5.9, roughly 4 times. We do not know if the gym helps. We know the country in which the gym is the third place is also the country in which that ratio holds. Now back to the central question: why this room? The honest answer is that the convergence is not a desire. It is a remainder. Imagine drawing a Venn diagram of the rooms a 30-year-old American man can walk into and find a clear game, a roster of other men, and a deterministic reward. 20 years ago, that diagram had many circles. Now most of the circles are smaller, or empty, or closed. What is left in the intersection is small. The squat rack is in the intersection. A reasonable critic will point out that some of the rooms that closed deserve to close. The men-only lodge that was built to exclude. The factory floor that ran on a wage that depended on someone else's labor going uncounted. The breadwinner monopoly that hid a private bill. This is true. The closing of those rooms was not only a loss, it was also, in many places, justice. Two things can be true at once. The convergence on the gym is not an injustice. It is what is left after the correction. Some of the men in those rooms are grieving something that should have ended. Some of them are grieving something that did not need to. What does the iron actually do? Honestly, without the influencer's promises. It produces a body that the user can describe accurately. After 2 years of consistent training, a man tends to know what he weighs, what he can lift, how he sleeps, what his recovery looks like. That is more self-information than most modern men have access to. It produces a moderate antidepressant effect. Gordon's D of -0.66 is real. It is not a cure for clinical depression. It is the kind of effect that, summed across years, moves a life. It produces a tolerable identity. The lifter is one of the few 21st century male identities that requires neither income nor charisma nor a verified profile. The room is open at 4 in the morning. It produces a small social membership. The nod at the rack, the silent handing off of the bench, the shared courtesy about not interrupting a set, not friendship, adjacency. It produces a stable evening narrative: lifted, showered, ate, slept. That is a complete sentence on a day that otherwise had none. What it does not produce, despite the marketing, is salvation. It does not fix a marriage. It does not refill a friend group. It does not undo a wage shock. It does not return the union local. A moderate, honest, repeatable effect is what the gym offers. And by the standards of modern male life, that is unusually a lot. Return to the man at the rack at 6:14. He is racking 405 and walking to the chalk bowl. Behind him, through the long mirror, you can see the other rooms of his city. Most of them are still dark this morning. The convergence is not what he wanted. It is what stayed open. The factory floor closed at 7 a.m. on a Friday in 1997. The lodge wound down by 2004. The church basement stopped being a place by 2015. The bar quietly priced him out by 2020. The iron did not call him. The other rooms went dark. Claymind may have overthought this one, but if it made you think, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.